Hi, I'm Katrina Berg of the Candy Colored Studio,
And I'm Jessica Libor of the Creative Heroine Podcast.
and we're so happy to be with you this morning. We are going to be talking about investing in your business as artists and creatives. We're just going to share some thoughts and ideas, and we're excited to just be with you this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I we decided on this topic because it's been so relevant for both of us. And as artists who are listening to this, I'm sure you realize there is a lot of investment to being an artist, not only of money, like buying supplies, but also your time and your skills and your dedication and your brain power. But we are going to talk about some other things that you may not realize could be really great investments for you, and that these are investments that we do not regret making as artists and arts professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when I first started as an artist, that everything that I made went right back into the business. So
Mm-hmm.
every time I got a check from a show or a collector, then I was spending it. But I would say, okay, here's this much money. What would be the best place for me to put this money? Whether it was finally getting a nice website or paying a little bit extra to have an email service. There's lots of things like that. Buying materials for shows, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe I don't know, like a display case or your panels. There's so many things. And so you think about that, but then so there's considering what are you going to spend your money on? But then also when you have a lot of the things that you need, then what do you do with that extra energy and that time? And like Jessica said, let's talk about some of those wise investments that you can choose.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to start with like your early art career. So like um I'm thinking about when you're in school, like as an artist. So obviously, going to art school is a huge investment, and you really have to weigh whether it will be worth it for you, because there are different ways to get an art education as an artist. And I went to I got my bachelor's degree and then I got my master's degree. And then I also did a lot of continuing education, which I still do every once in a while, continuing education. But I just remember after going through all the schooling that I did, I remember thinking, like, I wonder if I could have gotten this education from just doing continuing education,
Right.
which is like significantly less of an investment, and it doesn't hamper you as much um, financially.
Mhm.
So these are things that you have to think about if you're an artist starting out. And there are so many examples of artists who have never gone to art school, especially today in like the high end art market. Like people are actually like, it doesn't really make it that big of a difference anymore whether or not you go to art school. The only thing I would say is like think about the connections you could make. But honestly, you if you are intentional about networking, like going to art shows and going to arts events and like following up with people, you can make strong connections even if you don't go to art school. So, so think about that. I will say that my master's degree program really was a crucible for me in that it put me in like crisis mode of like what I'm going to do with my art. And when I came out of it, I was really a lot more clear. I was so much more clear about what I wanted to do with my art. Now that has changed over the last decade, but I think it should change. I think artists they should change over their career, have different periods. But but for me, it was definitely worth it. I got like a very good scholarship, um, and it was worth it to me because it exposed me to kind of like the contemporary art world, which I didn't have much exposure to before, um, and it just helped me to really refine things. So I would say I'm glad that I invested in my education
Mhm.
as an artist. So that's something that I do not regret. And in fact, I'm part of this text group of artists, and we all met during my MFA program, and we text each other every day, just updates about
Mhm.
our art and like careers and stuff like that. So that's been a real amazing support really for the last 10 years. And
Yeah.
so that's been really, really good. So, really, the contacts that you make during your master's degree, if you decide to do that, or any kind of art school. So, keep in touch with your contacts, be intentional about that. And then also, really be as rigorous as you possibly can with your art when you are in a program like that, because you're investing your time, you're investing your money, and you want to get as much out of it as you possibly can. So yeah, that's my first point. Education. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm that perfect example of somebody who didn't go to art school. I
Hmm.
have a couple different degrees from different colleges. My second one is the most similar, which is architecture. And so obviously I learned design skills and things that are helpful in the art world, but I didn't necessarily go to art school. And what I love about what you said, Jessica, is that you're grateful for the path that you took. And I feel the same way. Like I'm so grateful that I didn't go to art school because I really enjoyed I've enjoyed my path and I'm grateful for my path. I'm a person that likes to do things maybe I like to be less in the box per se. And so for
Mhm.
me, I think it was the perfect fit. It also works really well because by the time I realized I wanted to be an artist, I had a bunch of little kids and it was not really that it just wasn't it didn't make sense for me to drive an hour away to go to a university when I had three and under.
Yeah.
It didn't make
Wow.
any sense. So, but again, like Jessica said, there's lots of different ways that you can invest in your education without having to go to an art school. Like you can take courses online, you can do like a week long workshop, where it's not quite the same commitment.
Mhm.
I remember every summer for a long time, we had a planner event here in my little town. And so I would make sure and get people to watch the kids so that I could spend that whole it's really like a 10-day thing and I
Mhm.
would spend that whole 10 days and I would commit, obviously just made sure that I had time to invest in that event. And
Mhm.
that was one of the first things that I really invested in. But like Jessica says, when you choose to do something, you want to put all your energy into that thing that you're investing your time or your money. Like, for example, Jessica said she paid all this money for her MFA. So she wanted to get everything she could out of that experience. And I would say it's the same thing, whether you're doing an online course or a workshop or just participating in like a fair, it's good to just be totally present, make it your top priority so that you can do the best that you possibly can and you can show up for your collectors and for the people that want to be there to experience the art.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. I didn't know you had an architecture degree. That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I have an education degree and an architecture degree.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
So
so
did you design your new studio that you're building?
well, no, because so we met in architecture school and I started as like I was getting my master's in architecture, but then like in the first semester, my teacher, he was teaching a bunch of us and we had people in the architecture program, the landscape architecture program, and the interior architecture students. And he just was like, I think you're supposed to be a landscape architect. And then I had all these students from that program come over and see my I guess the end of year studio project that I was working on. And they
Mhm.
all kept saying the same thing. And I didn't even know what landscape architecture was. But
Mm.
once I looked into it, I was like, oh, it makes more sense. So, I mean, getting to work with plants was
Mm.
definitely, and the land. Like, I love the land and I love the plants. I love the natural world. And so
Mm.
it's great because when I was in school, we were taught to create outdoor spaces, just kind of like spaces that you live in outside and to really consider the outside. So then as an artist now, what I love to do is to bring the outside into the home so that you
Mhm.
can have that in your spaces. And so there's definitely benefits. And again, I feel like everyone's path is different
Mhm.
and it's important to follow your heart so that you can be totally satisfied with the path that you take.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. That's wonderful. So it's funny because we're both getting studios built right now. I'm in the process of having part of my garage made into an art studio, and Katrina's having a studio built as well. So It'll be very exciting. When do you think it'll be finished?
Oh, I don't know because we're gonna fund it the whole way through. Like, every
Oh,
time I sell a big painting, we'll do the next part on it.
I see.
And
Okay.
and to answer your question, so our friend that actually is the architect of our home, we have this concrete modern home. He also designed the studio so that it would match the home.
Oh,
So that's
cool.
the reason why we had him do it. Because yeah, we could have just done it ourselves and that would have been fine, but we wanted to make sure that the whole thing fit, and
Mm,
so it will also be most likely a concrete. I mean, we have the designs and everything, but
mhm,
we may, I mean, with the way building materials are right now, we might have to change a few things just to make
mhm.
sure that it's the most affordable, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's very
Love
exciting. So
that.
I don't know, but you're a lot closer than I am. When
Mhm.
when will you be in your studio?
Well, we're actually ready to put up the drywall next. So hopefully by like the end of May, honestly.
That's
Yeah,
so exciting.
it's very
Yeah, I think if we got it done in a year, that would be
okay.
that would be amazing. Yeah, we right now we're waiting on the Army Corps of Engineers. That's I mean, there's just all these fun little building things, but like we live on land that was considered wetland, so you have to
Mhm.
get you have to get certification from the Army Corps, and
Hmm.
so that's interesting. We may have to move a fire hydrant. So there's
Oh wow.
it's like that's the nice thing about like converting your garage into your studio is that
Mhm.
it's a it's just a little bit more, I don't know, it's
Yeah, there's
doable.
already a structure around it.
There's already structure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just need one permit, which we just got. So yeah,
Yeah.
everything is good. But I want to move back to investing in your career. I had a thought about investing. So after art school, I'm just going to go chronologically. Another thing that I don't regret is investing my time in traveling to art world hotspots to understand the art world at the highest level.
Uh-huh.
So for me, that was doing a lot of trips to New York and Paris. I know that Paris isn't like, I feel like New York is the center of the art world right now, but Paris has a lot going on as well. And so for me, New York is a very easy trip for me. It's 2.5 hours. Sometimes if I'm lucky, it's like an hour and 45 minutes if there's no traffic. But
Mhm.
actually recently over the past like 2 or 3 years, I've really made it a priority to educate myself on the art market in like a global scale,
Mhm.
because when you start out it's hard to think in those terms because it's just so grand, but um, the more time you spend on your art and the more you learn about art history and the art world in general, I just had this desire to understand more what was happening in like the higher levels of the art world, you know? And
Mhm.
so I can tell you what I did. I did research on what are like the top 10 galleries in the world right now, and I signed up for their mailing lists.
Yep.
And then once I was signed up for their mailing list, I would start to get notifications, like invitations to their openings. And so then I would prioritize going to some of the openings, and so then I would attend the openings, and I would talk to people there, and I would look at the art, and I would go to artist talks, which were really
Yes.
educational, and it really helped me to understand like just the culture of art at that level, which I didn't understand. Um, when you're just in your studio all the time, there's not as much of a context for what you're creating. And
Mhm.
so when I exposed myself to these different exhibitions and these artist talks, it inspired me to think bigger. And it
Mhm.
inspired me to think of my art in context of like a global art scene, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And I love how you became part of that world because you wanted to understand that world. And when
Yeah.
you chose to experience that, then, like you said, that's when the understanding came. And that's when you started to see,
Mhm.
okay, now if I want to be part of this world, the only way to really understand is to go and experience it,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
think that's so beautiful. And I would say there, going back to the people that are in, they feel like they're in early stages of their
Hmm.
career.
Hmm.
I did the same thing here locally. I started going to all the art gallery events and getting to
Hmm.
know the gallerists and the artists that are in those galleries,
Hmm.
going to the big shows that are here in Salt Lake. And
Hmm.
that's interesting because just like Jessica said, her art world looks different where she is than compared to the art world that I see here. And
Yeah.
again, just if you want to know what it's like, just go and participate. I remember one of the really big art shows that I was in, there were quite a few artists that would come and talk to me and wanted to know what it was like. And they wanted to come and experience. And I thought, oh, they are so wise. They're so wise. Sometimes I would be the one that had never been to the show and I would never go until I got into the show. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to be prepared, you want to go and experience it so you know what to expect, what it's going to feel like, how you can best prepare for it.
Yeah. And I think the thing for me that was the most helpful is I would go to these art shows and then it would feel like I would be like, oh, this is like basically this is kind of like what's selling, this is what's hot, this is
Mhm.
what's popular right now, and this is what's in style. And I would see all these different kinds of works, and I would see some overlaps to like my own work. And then it really helped me to like to think of my artwork differently. And I started making work that was just a little bit more contemporary, but still with like a really authentic voice to me. And
Right.
I think it's interesting. Those two artworks that I made with that in mind
Mhm. Mhm.
have now gotten me into a very high end art fair, spring break, in New York
Which
this
is
year.
amazing, which is so exciting.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that. I
yeah.
love that. So Jessica recently did like a three-part podcast series.
Mhm.
And I remember one of the things that was really great that you talked about was just, okay, I'm losing my train of thought. It was totally to do with your spring break thing. And- Okay, I'm losing it. But anyways, go and listen to those because some of
Okay.
the things that we're talking about today, like it'll feel like a natural, I don't know, transition into the
Mhm.
three-part series. Those of you on the that are listening mostly from the Candy Colored Studio, go listen to that because it's really good. It'll kind of like add little pieces to what we're talking about
Oh,
today.
thank you, Katrina.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Um,
So, okay, so we talked about some of the things. Well, tell us what are some of the other, when you said you do like supplemental learning, like
yeah.
since you're what are some of your favorite things that you would suggest to other artists?
So, what has been really helpful to me as far as like skill building is um, there's a there's a really great art school that's really focused on skill called the Grand Central Atelier that I've taken a lot of continuing education classes in New York. So there was a period of 2 years over the last 10 years when I would go there literally every weekend and I would take their classes, and it was stuff like portraiture and um, about values, about shading, about basically how to paint like well, their thing is the French academic method, but it's super realistic and it's super like detailed and
Yeah.
very subtle. And there's been some amazing artists that have come out of that. And I would say my period of 2 years going there in person, just on the weekends, I made some wonderful contacts with artists that I've exhibited with. And also, I've learned such amazing skills. And this is after all my like formal schooling because I felt like I needed more. But I was working at the time. I was a makeup artist, and I just wanted to further my skills because a lot of traditional art schools, well, I say traditional, a lot of modern art schools, they have less emphasis on like the skill building and more about conceptual work. And with Grand Central Atelier, it's more heavy on the skill building. So for me, that's what I felt like I was lacking, and I felt like I got there. So that's something I definitely don't regret. And I actually still occasionally take a class from them. I took a class this fall um, with Ananda Featherington, and she was so great. And it was about building a body of work cohesively. So it was more conceptual actually.
Mhm.
And I took the second one with her this spring, and it was really cool. It was really cool. We talked about what our work wants to say, and like the aesthetics of our work and all this stuff. So it creates like a community for us to talk about that, and it was really fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and yeah. As far as skill building stuff, though, I haven't taken that in a while, because I feel like I've learned a lot of it. But and if I want to brush up on that, I have so many books and there's so many tutorials online that I can just do that. But I highly recommend taking like continuing education classes that are specific to your niche. You know.
Exactly. And I think that's something that we have to consider too, is that sometimes it's really easy. Like I've watched a lot of artists take classes after classes, workshop after workshops to learn from other artists. And I think that's super helpful. Like if you look at it as it's being like cross training, as an athlete is super important. So if you are doing this cross training and it like opens up a new part of your work, just like Jessica said, after she spent time in those very high end galleries and their events, then she channeled a lot of what she learned into the next two paintings. So again, a lot of times the cross training can be super helpful
Mhm.
to just help you through your process or the next stage of where you're at. What I would say be careful of is that I saw a lot of artists that were taking workshops and classes from lots of different artists, which is great. But if you are so focused on learning everyone else's style and you don't give yourself time to learn and really dive deep into your own style, then again, your priorities might just need to be reworked
Mhm.
because you want to make sure that your work is the top priority and that those, again, are supplemental. They're adding to the work that you're doing. I know that sometimes artists get confused like I don't know which one is my style. Well, it's good to try lots of different things and to learn from lots of different people, but it's also really important to put in the time and the effort and invest in your own work, right?
Mhm. Mhm. For sure. Yeah. Absolutely. You have to I think like the most successful artists, not just in terms of like money or fame, but also like just in terms of like your vision, like your how it's true to yourself is like yeah, tapping into the most you can possibly be and like
Mhm.
expressing that.
Right. And the only way to do that is actually be you and be
Mhm.
authentic. Just like Jessica said, she wanted to learn what it was like at those highest levels. And so she experienced it. So it's the same thing. Like invest in yourself and you will see amazing things happen. There's also like little things that you can do that seem like no brainers, but for me, I felt like in the beginning, just buying books on art business was super helpful.
Mhm.
Learning from, like, there were books that I read by Jason Horace, who's a gallery owner who also helped his dad with his career when he was younger. He was going to all the shows and events with his dad. So he learned a lot about the art business from his dad. And then he became a gallerist himself when he was
Mhm.
older. And that was super helpful for me to read some of his books and to go to his presentations. That was really fun when he came locally. I got to go and meet him, but I got to learn right there, live. And so again, sometimes you think, oh, these are just little things. Is it going to make that big of a difference? But it did for me. And so if your heart tells you, go ahead and buy that book or take that just 1 week course on this one particular thing about entrepreneurship or being a creative business owner,
Mhm.
it inevitably it's going to help you so much.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Some other things that have really helped me invest in my career that I don't regret, like a record keeping system. So I use Artwork
Yes.
Archive, and that has been really helpful in like streamlining art sales and like knowing what I have applied to and keeping records of my income versus expenses. So that's been a really helpful thing. And it's like $20 a month, something like that. But it's been like invaluable for me, just like keeping my business going. Um, what about you?
Okay,
What kind of
so yeah, so I guess I would ask like, so it's connected to your bank accounts and so it's kind of your accounting plus it keeps track of where your artwork is. Is that right?
It's not connected to your bank account, so you have to
Okay.
manually input your expenses versus like what you buy.
Right.
But I actually kind of like that because then I have to like really sit down and be like, what am I using my money on? Um,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah. So, yeah, and then you can it has like digital archives where you can put each piece in and like high resolution images of each piece and like all the details of each piece and then who collected it and like what's the date of that and like
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. I'll have to send you the link.
Yeah, you'll have to. So I'm actually going to do an upcoming interview with an artist that came back from um, doing her master's in New York City. I can't remember which program it is, but she and her husband have come up with a system as well. So it'll be interesting to see how what they're doing and what you're using,
Mm,
how it works. For
yeah.
me, I love Google Sheets, and so I have
Mm,
everything saved in there. Um, yeah, it's interesting because I think from time to time it's good to back up what you're doing just in case your software, you know,
oh yeah, for
you know
sure.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I use mostly Google products. And so I have folders on my computer with all the works, but then I have the spreadsheets that explain who bought it, where it went,
Hmm.
their contact information, things like that. And so but it is nice to have it all in one place for
Yeah.
sure. I think
Yeah.
that's really smart. And I know there's other, like I remember one of my artist friends, she would print out the painting on just a piece of paper and then she had a manila folder for each of the galleries she worked with and then the painting would go in that folder and it seems so simple but then she could visually see where everything was. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense? And then
Yeah.
if one painting came home from one gallery then she'd just move it into a
Oh, I
different
like that.
folder.
Okay. Yeah.
So again, very simple, very concrete and like tactile.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
a simple system. But yeah, I agree. That's definitely a wise investment to to feel confident about how you're keeping track of all
Hmm.
your work and your obviously your accounting, things like that. So
Yeah, for sure. So, so that's been really invaluable. And then there's other things like I bought a $3,000 camera a couple of years ago,
yes.
and but I use that to like document all my paintings, and it's like an insane level of detail. Like, and I
Yeah.
can make really high level prints out of it, the images. So there's that. I also like really coaching and like teaching has been very much like the courses that I've taken as an artist, the books I've read, and because and also like when I've hired coaches for myself, like that has been the most invaluable for me, I would say. Hmm.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel the same way. And, obviously listening to podcasts are
Yeah.
really helpful,
Hmm.
but sometimes you just need to have that one-on-one with a coach. And I think
Hmm.
that's amazing. You'll just see things differently because someone else is really zeroing in on you and
Hmm.
exactly what you're doing. And that's super helpful. I
Yeah.
think also, just like you talked about going and experiencing the high end markets in New York City and other places, just going to museums is so
Hmm.
helpful. And
Hmm.
that was one of the reasons why I personally started painting is because I'd spent so much time in my study abroad semesters in museums and when you have that experience and you want to have that in your life all the time you're like okay how can I have this be part of my life on a
Hmm.
regular basis if I
Yeah.
can't fly to New York or fly to Paris
Right.
what can I do to make sure that I have that level of beauty and just thought in my
Hmm.
life
Hmm.
so
Yeah, I love that. And the other thing that probably is my last thing for now is like investing time in actually painting because
mm,
you will definitely, I mean, you get better by painting and continuing to like invest in not just painting, but like brainstorming about your future paintings and like getting a little bit
yeah,
more intentional about why you're creating and what kind of work you want to create and just making that space in your schedule to be intentional so you don't just sit down and paint whatever. You know?
exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I finally experienced that a few years ago, like just really planning out a
Mm,
body of work from start to finish, having a really strong theme and then sub themes for each painting. And that was such an amazing experience. And I'm just grateful for that. And
mhm.
once you have that, then it just really elevates the direction of your
Hmm.
of your whole career, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For
That's
sure.
awesome.
Hmm.
Well, this has been a great chat. Are there any like last minute things? I mean, like I would say there's little things that we didn't talk about, like for example, investing in your quality. So like
Yeah.
I know it's really intense and it's stressful for artists to pay a lot of money on frames or better art
Mhm.
supplies. There are some things that probably don't matter. Like I know some people really get a lot of it really helps them to have specific brushes, and other people, it doesn't matter for their style how much they spend money on brushes. But when it comes to frames, I would say frames are the universal thing. You always want your work to look the best that it can possibly look, and you
Mhm.
want it to really showcase your
Mhm.
work. And so
Mhm.
I would say that's another thing that I would never regret is spending a good amount on frames.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Frames. And for me, it's been supports for my art. So, like what
Mhm.
I paint on. So, I just, like last month, I ordered a whole bunch of new supports. My favorite is art boards. Have you heard of them?
No, go ahead.
Oh my gosh. They make like the most high quality things to paint on. So it's the ones that I like are they're a panel, like a thick panel, and they have oil primed linen glued to the panel. So it's like super, super smooth, but it's also like the most archival that you can possibly get. And it like does not warp at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are my favorite things to paint on. So I have a bunch of them all lined up, ready to go.
Right. And that's the thing is that once you notice what makes your work look the best, whether it's an art panel or whatever thing that you works best for you, it's hard to go back.
Hmm.
But again, you're investing in your work and you're investing in the quality of your work, which means that the collectors will appreciate it. Like Jessica says, we don't want it to warp or get damaged. We want to be able to protect our work as much as possible.
Hmm.
And yeah, just having archival possibilities is really important. So
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's not just about the collectors at that point. It's also like I want my work to like last a really long time. I want my legacy as an artist to be protected, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think one more thing that we could think about too is that once you are making a regular income from your art and you've been able to pay yourself and to do the things that you need to do, when you get that extra money, I think it is really important to just say, okay, what is going to give me the most bang for for my buck right now? So, just like Jessica said, for her at one point it was to buy a camera. And it was for me too. I remember after a big show, I talked to some collectors, and one of them, he's a photographer, and he's like, you really need to get a better camera. And my husband's like, yeah, he's right. So that's what I did with the money that I made from that show. I went and bought a new camera, and
Mhm.
it does make a big difference. I have another friend who bought all the lighting stuff so that she could do a better job of taking pictures with
Mhm.
her nice camera. And so there's always a way that kind of just elevates your process. And so that would be really important is just to think about what can I do right now? Where can I put that money so that it's going to benefit me the most? Because
Mhm.
obviously you could put your money into lots of different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And your time. So you really have to prioritize for sure.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Prioritize and just keep following your heart, because I think that it's okay. Like not everyone needs to do the same thing at the same time. And so just be really mindful about your path and what's going to be best for you in your career.
Yeah. And also like just believe that it's possible. I think that there's a lot of negativity in the art world among art. There can be among artists where like there's like there's almost like a resentment towards people who are successful,
Mhm.
and just it's not helpful to you to to lean on that or to lean into that. It's really helpful to believe that you just deserve success. Your work deserves to be seen. And if it's not resonating, like, do some diagnostics. Like, why not? Maybe you need to work on your skills. Maybe you need to work on your conceptual work. Maybe you need to work on your presentation, like your website and stuff. But like just to have like a positive attitude and Yeah, instead of getting jealous of other people or resentful, use them as inspiration, because if they're making you feel something, that means you want to experience what they are experiencing, you know? So to take that and turn it into inspiration and positivity. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, no, we need to be able to do that. And we want to support one another because there
Mhm.
is room for everybody. And
Yeah.
if you don't put your work out there, somebody will not be able to experience that. You won't get to experience creating the work, but then the person that's supposed to take care of that work and to invite it into their home or their space, they won't get to experience that. And so Jessica's right. There is a lot of negativity out there sometimes, just a lot of fear when it comes to making art. But
Mhm.
again, sometimes the things that seem the most scary or the most negative is just telling you something good could happen if you will push through this, if you will ignore those voices, whether they're coming from inside your own head or somebody else. And
Mhm.
then, it's okay to support one another. Just because one person is succeeding doesn't mean that we can't succeed. Everyone can
Mhm.
have and reach their highest potential as artists.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. That's so great, Katrina.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been a
Yeah,
great conversation. And
absolutely.
yeah, we just want you to know that we support you and
Mhm.
we want you to be able to create and find happiness in creating. And we are always here just to support you.
Yeah.
So
Do you have anything you want to share about anything upcoming that
upcoming. So I told Jessica this morning that we're leaving tomorrow for Italy. And I think,
Mhm.
again, anytime you have a chance to go and travel and spend time with people that you love, it's amazing what it does when you get back to the studio. I think sometimes, we just keep working and it's important to take a break and
Yeah.
to experience life, right? Not be hiding in our studio all the time. So that's coming up for me. And then I do have a big show at the end of the summer. It's called Swiss Days. And we get I can't remember, it's 200,000 people that walk through. It's pretty crazy. So it's a big
Wow.
event and that's coming up. So I'll be working all summer getting ready for that. I've got a couple of local shows that I'm participating in. But yeah, that's going to be my focus for the next few months and I'm excited.
Amazing. Amazing.
And how about
So
you? Do you
cool.
want to tell them what you've got going on?
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry. It's pollen season here, so it's like the pollen is really in full swing. So yeah, I'm going to be participating in Spring Break Art Fair with Christy Gordon and Victoria J. Fry. So if you are in New York City from May 6th through the 12th, that's the active exhibition dates. And you can come at any time. Tickets are like $30, and it all goes to support the production of it. And so we're going to have a booth there, and it's going to be really exciting. So
Yay.
a lot of my energy will be going towards that in May. I'm also going to be having a studio sale during May, and like an online studio sale. So because I'm going to be moving studios, so I'm bringing out a lot of some works that have never been seen before, and I'm going to have a studio sale. So keep an eye on that. And then I'm also curating a show at the Hamptons Fine Art Fair. It's called um, the Gardens of Enchantment. And so, if you are interested in submitting your work to that, I'll put the link in the show notes. So, that is going to be awesome. So, that's going to be in July, but the deadline is in June. So, June 1st. So, I'm going to put the deadline, going to put the link there. And then, of course, I have my courses and coaching, of course. So those are ongoing. The Luminary Artist Academy, which teaches you everything I know about being an artist, and then also Reinvention, which is it's kind of like a refresher for like mid-career artists. So I have those two courses. Yeah, that's all my stuff, and I'll put all the links in the show notes.
That's awesome. Thank you. We look forward to that. And definitely those of you that got sparked when she talked about the Hampton show, definitely apply to Jessica's show. That would be
Yeah.
awesome. So thank you again, Jessica. This has been a great chat. And we just want to send a lot of love to each of you creatives out there. And just remember that we know you can do it. So just keep moving forward with lots of love.
Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.